welcome to tonight's show of Dogman Stories. I'm glad each and every one of you are able to tune in on this Thursday night, and I would like to apologize for not being up last night. Unfortunately, I was still under the weather, but I'm feeling much better tonight. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Tonight's story, Dogman Stories, The German Murderers. First off, I'd like to start out with a letter or a story that we received from our fellow Dogman fan, John. Now, John has sent me a story of his own, and I would like to share it with you all. Hello, my name is John. I have heard some stories that the government is making dogmen. I wouldn't doubt it, but there is something that people are missing. If the government is making these dogmen, they are using black magic and satanic rituals to do so. I have heard about compounds and chips used, which I don't doubt. However, it is only by evil and rituals that these creatures can be made. If the government is creating them, they are into black arts. God help us all, and pray for protection in the name of Jesus. Now my story. In 1978, my friend Paul and I were walking through the woods. For a couple of days, the woods had been very quiet. We knew it was wrong. Something was strange. We had both used to being in the woods, and both had been camping with our families for years. We had already seen bears and many animals in the woods with our parents. We were in the 6th grade, but till this day I had never seen a creature like this one. In the movies, yes. In real life, no. Not until our encounter, that is. It was dark and we were on our way home. It was late fall. We couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. We looked up the hill and saw a shadow moving. It was huge. We stopped, it stopped. We moved, it moved. Then it looked at us directly. We could make out the shape, but then we saw the eyes. Oh my God, we saw cold, yellow eyes. We heard a growl. We both said, "Oh God!" turned and ran. I started praying and begging for protection in the name of Jesus. We got out of the woods and did not see the creature when we looked back. The town I live in is part of a place called Hakamak by the Indian tribes who lived here first. It means place where the spirits dwell. My friend Paul and I realized if we told adults they would call us liars, so we kept our mouths shut. We didn't even go back into the woods until we heard the animals and birds again. Years later, I was driving by the other end of the woods. I saw a wolf head peering out from behind a large bush. Actually, it was above the bush and on the downside of an incline. There were those eyes again. It looked at me like it was studying me, like it knew I was the child so many years ago, and it was the dogman that scared the crap out of us. Almost like human intelligence and memory. I sped off. That was my last encounter. And by the way, I went back in the morning, armed of course. The dogman had to be 7 feet tall to be peering over the bush with the incline. I still go deep in the woods, but I am armed every time. I always bless the site and the tent, praying for protection from evil. And yes, crazy as you may think I am, I have a few silver bullets made and blessed. I'm sorry that I'm not very good at telling stories, but this really did happen. My friend is the only other witness, but he died in October of 2009. These creatures are real, and they are dangerous, but they are made from evil. Praying to God and invoking the name of Jesus with all your heart will protect you. It saved our lives, and the silver bullets are just in case I have a moment of not being sure of prayer. We all fall short, so they are my backup in case of a moment of weakness. Well, John, I think your story was a great story, and you tell it like it is, which is awesome. We all need Jesus in our life, and in case of a dogman encounter, silver bullets is a good idea, especially for a backup. Not putting down prayers, but if it was my encounter, I'd always have bullets as a backup to my prayers. Well, thanks, John. And if you happen to see another dog man, please do tell us more. Okay, guys, that was John with his encounter. Now let's all give him a round of applause. It took a lot of courage for him to tell his story, especially with all the hateful people in this world. But you know what? At least the dogman believers, like ourselves, are aware of what's out there. And we know to lock our doors and to lock up all our windows and everything. And we know to look and be aware when we go out in the woods. So hopefully we may have an encounter, but we won't get attacked. But for the people that do not believe or refuse to believe, I don't want anybody to get attacked. But they can't say they wasn't warned. I mean, hello, how many dogman shows are telling people dogman exists, and you have these people, no, it don't. Well, when they get attacked or they see something that makes them poop in their pants, they were warned. Okay, on to our next encounter. I want to read y'all a story that I received from another one of our loyal fans. Mr. Wolfie is what I'm going to call him. I love this story. It's a great story, and it scares the crap out of me. And here we go. My grandpa and his brother had told me a few encounters that they had personally had. The first encounter was with what he refers to as the devil ape. My grandpa and his brother were on a hunting trip in Ashe County, North Carolina. They were very deep in the woods, around 3 miles over hills and forest area. They had been hunting for most of the day, and it was starting to get dark. Not knowing the area so well at the time is not a good idea to try to hike out in the dark. So they packed up and started to head out. As they were hiking out, they heard something coming up behind them. It sounded like a bulldozer pushing trees aside. Not knowing what to think, they pulled out their flashlights and shined it right at the area where the trees were moving and the sound was coming from. To their surprise, they saw a 9-foot creature with blood-red eyes staring right at them. Scared to death and not knowing what to do, they raised their guns and shot it. It made the most horrible sound they had ever heard. It covered its eye and ran into the bush. My grandma and grandpa and his brother hauled ass out of there as quickly as they could. They possibly had shot it in the eye with their 30-30s, which would explain why it screamed so horribly and ran away, instead of chasing them further. That event took place in 1935, Ashe County, North Carolina, and I apologize, Grandma did not go. My grandpa's next encounter was with a dogman or dogmen. The year was 1944, and it was a few days after D-Day. He was ordered to watch a hill. Him and 3 other soldiers took a jeep with a .50 caliber mount and rode up the hill where they discovered 3 dead German soldiers. The German soldiers were torn to shreds and body parts ripped apart and lying all over the place. It looked as if a freaking bomb went off on them. He stopped the jeep and they all got out and looked around. It was dusk now. They were looking at the bodies and they heard 5 long howls and heard movement on the hill. They ran back to the jeep and hopped in, just in time. As soon as the last man was in, 5 dogmen topped the hill and were on the dead Germans, eating them, as if it was nothing to chew through human bones. What the? He said to himself. Everyone stared in silence. The dogman didn't even notice the jeep or the men in the jeep. as they were ripping what was left of the Germans apart and devouring them. That is until the man on the 50 caliber cocked it. The dogmen all looked up at the same time, growled very deep, and started to move toward them. My grandpa ordered his men to open fire. 2 M1 Grands, 1 bar, and a 50 cal opened up, and they tore them dogmen apart. The 50 cal cut one dogman in half. They fired over 1,000 rounds at them. There was nothing but dogman pieces left. They decided to get to the top of the hill for the night and camp in the Jeep because it was dark by the time they were done killing the dogmen. By morning, they went back down to the kill site, and the bodies of the dogmen and the Germans were gone. There were no human prints, only giant dog-like prints. So there must have been more. So they got the hell out of there, and they never told anyone about it, not even their commander. My grandfather told me this on his deathbed. He warned me of what lurks in the woods and in the shadows, to not dismiss it because dogmen do exist, and they are out to kill everything and everyone they encounter. Wow, guys, that was a creepy story. I am glad I was not one of them German soldiers. Could you imagine being torn to shreds alive? I mean, could you imagine what was going through them Germans' mind? They were thinking they were fighting one enemy, and then a whole other enemy comes up. That is so crazy. But it's just the way it is. You never know these days what's going to happen to you. Anyways, guys and gals, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dogman Stories with your host, Amanda Lawson. I thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you all back here Saturday at 9 p.m. Good night. And also, if you're still listening and you haven't turned this off yet, you are hearing about the contest that I'm having, and it will be announced in 3 weeks, the winner. The contest is for anybody willing to travel to North Carolina or anybody living in North Carolina. I am giving away 1 Emerald Point ticket to anybody who wants to go with me and my husband. So anybody that wants to go to Emerald Point for a day for free, and food included, but that's out of the cooler. Now, if you want to buy that high dollar food, you got to buy it yourself. Feel free. I'm going to put a sign-up sheet up, put your name on there, and I'll pick one person from the sheet. So, if you want to go to Emerald Point, I tell you what, I'll throw 2 tickets in. For a husband and a wife, or for a wife and a child, or for whoever you want. 2 tickets. 2 tickets to Emerald Point. That's the contest. It's Emerald Point in Greensboro. So, anybody wanting to hang out with me for a day and talk about Dogman and get wet,